Okay, so now we thought it would be useful for you all if you heard from some faculty who's used GenderMag, previously used GenderMag in their courses to kind of get an idea of how you might use SES Mag in your courses. Um, so first we have Rose on Zoom, who's going to be speaking on behalf of Lara Letaw, who used GenderMag at Oregon State University. All right, Rose, can you say something?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I think we can hear you.
Awesome. So, yes, hi, I'm here to talk sort of on behalf of Lara Letaw, who is an instructor at Oregon State University's eCampus. So she teaches online courses, in particular software engineering at the undergraduate level. She's also taught HCI at the grad level. And so I'm just going to give kind of an overview of what it is that she did with GenderMag, how that turned out for her. Please stop me if you at any point if you have questions or comments. Feel free to interrupt me. And so I'm going to be talking about Lara's software engineering and what she did there. So on the screen here on the left side with the your TA part, this is a TA profile that Lara had all of her TAs do, and she herself did this as well. That was modeled after the way that the GenderMag personas are set up. And so she had each TA and herself share the way that they approach technology in the sort of framework of GenderMag. If you're familiar with GenderMag, they identified their facet values and shared those with students. And we'll talk more about what facet values are later if you don't know that quite yet. And so this was sort of a way for students to get to know the instructor team and also to start becoming familiar with GenderMag concepts and seeing these in action in sort of informal ways scattered throughout the course. And she also brought this concept into the team project as well. So as we kind of saw when I was sharing those results earlier, there were some, noticeable results for teamwork. And Lara took advantage of these and had teams actually identify their own facet values and share them with their teammates so that it's sort of an icebreaker, sort of a get to know you situation for the teams. And this was all done on a discussion board, so both at a team level and a class level, so that you can see kind of a snippet of that. State which personas you identify with and describe two of your facet values. And she used that TA profile as an example as well. And then asked students to respond to different people. So very sort of a way to facilitate discussion between people in the class. And so when students actually filled this out, there were a lot of really interesting results. So I've seen some of those from her class of students really getting into interacting with each other, saying, oh, I approach software in a completely different way than you. I never would have thought that somebody would do it like that, but it's interesting to see. Or maybe on the other hand, saying, oh, I approach it exactly the same way that you do. That's so cool. So really opening up some great discussions. And I think we'll get to see a bit more of this type of interaction a little bit later. And another thing that Lara did was to include this in orange here. You see she has it titled Cognitive Style Heuristics Exploration. So there's a set of heuristics for GenderMag. And she included those instead of including the full GenderMag walkthrough. So a smaller piece of GenderMag content than the whole GenderMag method. And she created a Canvas exploration for these and had students go through that, learn about them. And then I do believe that she eventually had them use the heuristics on their software projects as well.
Great, thank you, Rose. I guess our hope for this is that it would be kind of like a Q&A session, or like, if you have any questions, if you want to make it more of like a discussion, then feel free to, ask away.
I've used this same exercise and it's like magic. I don't know if any of you have used this same one where you get them to share their facets with each other on Teams. Have you done this?
Yes,
Yeah, it is like magic, right?
yes.
How have you seen it play out with your students?
Well, I'm gonna talk about my
Okay,
GenderMag experiences. in my
sure.
course.
Okay, well, I'll say how it played out in mine then. I used it in a class 6 weeks into the term, so they already knew each other. And they already had their teams and had already worked with them. And it still was like magic. All of a sudden, the guy from India and the guy from China who hadn't paid too much attention to each other before were like best buddies. It's like, holy cow, look at this, we're exactly the same. And all of a sudden they're valuing differences among each other. And it's like, no wonder, we make such a good team. You always think of stuff I don't, and I always think of stuff you don't, and this is why. And so they just started valuing their differences and valuing their similarities and valuing each other. And so I think that these sorts of things are what are behind those differences in climate that we saw in her results. My TA, who is very involved in this whole project, Rita, some of you have met her. She was my TA in class. And, she came out of the class crying happy tears because she was so moved by what she saw in that room. It was amazing.
I just realized that maybe did people on the Zoom hear any of that, or?
I don't know.
Yes, I think we were able to.
Oh, okay,
Okay,
that's good to
awesome.
hear. Alrighty.
Let's see, I just see what slides do I have. Okay. Yeah, so I obviously was working with GenderMag for a couple of years. I was embedding them in object-oriented and data structure in web development. And easiest way I found to do it in web development, because it's literally like this, walk through this canvas, which we have, or mobile application in a bookstore. So I was literally I didn't develop like very much of my own materials rather than using provided materials. So in this class, it fit very well. So literally we develop website, we develop responsive web design hybrids, which can be mobile too, and it matches. Obviously product should be, accessible and understandable and, just nice to use for everyone. So I would say it's not even like, maybe IB team is like, everybody should be happy. They shouldn't be feeling bad about themselves. Say, you got this website, I couldn't register, so like, for maybe team personas, it will be just piece of cake, but IB persona will be happy too. So we won't be saying, it's probably me that I cannot do it. It's just to the level that, IB can do it too. So that was technically my approach. So I actually was using Margaret's video from YouTube because I was thinking, what if my view is not matches directly or something? Just I didn't want like be like a mirror which has some reflection. I was using exactly like recording and material provided by the group, and so I would say results were good, engaging, good amount of collected works. So I think I provided a lot of work. No, personally, compared to now, I'm a little bit shifting students willing to do group work. So that's probably challenging for now because I didn't see this in that year when we started. So students were already working with each other, sometimes on group assignment. Now is not the same. So we need to overcome this and develop some new approaches. For example, today, I gave students some simple game in Python, which was already working. And I said, let's get together and develop more this game together. And majority said I go solo. And I see this I Go Solo for last 2 years. So students somehow after COVID or other stuff, I'm not sure, but there's definitely dynamics currently to go solo. I think everybody, not everybody, just generally like a amount of loneliness and kind of separation, something nowadays is bigger when they did that. So that's kind of just challenging for now. So, okay, so as I mentioned, I did use the materials. Also in Java, it was harder to integrate. So I was integrating it. Let's try different ideas, but like it.
Let's pause before we get into this.
Okay.
Anybody have comments or questions about the part that she did so far? What about the teamwork comment she made? So she was, Yulia
Yeah.
was saying that, the students aren't as excited about working in teams and they're opting to go
Yeah,
solo.
last 2 years, I noticed that.
How is that panning out in the rest of your courses? Are you making them do their teamwork because that's what
Oh,
they'll need to do?
definitely.
Yeah.
That was the whole highlight of the whole project,
Mhm.
and I loved it.
Yeah, and part of maybe the motivation was you said they have to do that in industry anyway, or?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And it just brought about the real world scenario
Mhm.
experience.
Yeah, what about the rest of you? What about this teamwork versus solo? How are you dealing with that? Are you just ignoring it or what? Does it matter? But yeah,
Some do ask, can I do solo, but it's not an option.
yeah, I do that too. I tell them
Right.
about it. not an option.
Eventually tell them, if you're a good genius who can work by yourself later on, I love them, I said, go ahead. But eventually you don't work with everyone else. And it's a phase to learn how to work with people. That's why every class has a group project. And they will say, okay.
Okay. And I think I saw you.
Each semester, and no matter which class it is, so there are students want to work solo, so not in a group. They keep asking me, can I work just by myself? I don't want to work in a team with anybody.
Yeah.
At the same time, I told them that's not an option. And if they cannot find a team, I will pair those individual students and let them. And I always told them like this is part of like the learning process. You need to learn how to work in a team. In the future, if you work in no matter in the industry or in the academia, so you need to know how to work with others.
But mainly, I think the main reason why they want to do that is because they think it affects their grade, right? If
Yeah.
they're matched with someone who's maybe not good and does not contribute to the project, they feel they're gonna be penalized. That's the main reason why they kind of want to work solo. And
Or they had bad experience working with
previous,
previous.
of course, they're gonna, in
For writers.
some way, they're gonna have someone working most of the project, and someone just clicking a couple of buttons.
I feel like you guys do a good job of not letting that happen though, because I know in your AI class, so long, it so that we had to like explain how much work each person did.
Yeah.
So that is then contributed to the grade as well.
I try to distinguish the people who work a lot and work nothing and give them different grades. So I think that's fair for the people who work a lot in the team.
I do that too. I see you nodding. Do you do that also?
Yeah, I let my students, so we're doing projects, programming projects. So I let students kind of like add comments to the code. The following part is written by A and the following part is written by B. And they also need to like write me some notes, which team member contributed like a portion to the project, and everyone has a separate note, so I can compare and give everyone their score.
Yeah, I do almost exactly that. Same. Yeah.
That's very helpful.
And I announced from the very beginning till the very end that, that we're collecting data all term about who did how much. And some, there may be some weeks that are particularly bad for one team member. And so they can make up for it and do more some other one, but I expect it to all even out by the end. And then what I do at the very end is if the proportions are kind of sort of about right, I don't worry about it. But if there's somebody that's like way out of whack, you know, then I will either lower the course grade, or if they're way out of whack the other way, there's a freeloader and that person alone made up for all that freeloading, then I end up with the other way. And it usually, that course adjustment usually affects about 10% of my students. Yeah. You did something like that?
Yes.
Yeah.
I also like at the end of the report, write your contribution,
Mhm.
just like as you similarly doing journals, you
Mhm.
write down
Uh-huh.
what contribute to what.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
we wrote down, who wrote what,
Mhm.
at the end, I have an acknowledgement, so.
Mhm.
If you don't have that, I said, then no points, so
Mhm.
they have that.
Yeah.
It seems like you guys are tougher than we are, and that's. In terms of insisting on everyone having to be a group, so we strongly, I do it. In IT and computer science, really strongly encourage, and some little arm twisting to make forms groups, but every semester, every spring. There's one or two solo projects out of the 60, we have so many students. Both. And then for various reasons, there's one or two for various reasons end up a solo project, but we definitely try to push the groups, but not to the 100% requirement. For computer science. You got some solo projects also, right?
Well, yeah, a lot of the solo students say it's scheduling, they want to be able to work on their own, on their own
There's-
time, their own schedule, so that's, I think, a big part of it too.
So Dr. Amani Ayad has joined us. She teaches our object-oriented 3962. And Amani, we're talking about group projects, and I can't recall, do you have any group projects? And other things? And is
yeah.
it compulsory, or what do you?
It is required, yes, along with the midterm and final exam, they have to do the group projects, a number of students per group. And I give them the list of the topics at the first day of the semester, and they have to select the topic, and then whenever I teach, maybe like if I teach on Tuesday, on Thursday it's a lab, which is I put them together and they work and they apply what they learned on Tuesday lecture.
Did you get reluctant people for teaming? Because I know software engineering, HCI, I do require groups. I do get reluctant people. We're hearing about folks, oh, I want to work individually. Do you get that kind of thing?
Of course, because that's.
So how do you handle it? Do you say teams, or do you say?
I meet with them individually or in the group by if there is something like these situations, and I ask them to do like a team peer review after each milestone, and then I tell them that's confidential, that's only me, I can see this, and then they write about it. Like, yeah. And I always say it's not all the time. Sometimes I receive like complaints about at the beginning, only at the beginning of the semester, and then they got along together. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, last semester was good, but yes, I did not receive that much. Yeah.
Yeah, there's always a certain amount of pushback, well, not always, sometimes at the beginning.
At the beginning only, yes.
Yeah, and then, you know, you just tell them, you know, make it work. You gotta do it in industry, and somehow they make it work.
Yes.
So, Diana's got a question that's come in from remote watchers.
So
Oh, you got it, yeah, that.
is asking if you guys can use GenderMag for students based on their classes or group projects.
Oh, nice question. I'm not,
Okay,
I'm only temporarily getting in the vicinity.
okay.
But you don't have to leave.
Okay.
Hi, Danny. So I have not used the facets to group team members, and if I did, I think I would group them with people with different facet values, because the whole benefit of diversity in society and in business and in teams is to get diversity of thought together. So if you did that, the last thing you'd want to do is put all the Abbies together and put all the Tims together. They might like each other better, but they won't do as well. And that's what industry says too. They say, you know, if you collaborate with people outside your comfort zone, it won't be quite as pleasant, but you'll do so much better work. And the reason it won't be quite as pleasant is, you're not two minds thinking the same thoughts and, just jumping into the same decisions, which is easy. But now you're not considering all the things you probably should be. And that's why different minds contribute to better stuff. And that's why business does that. And that's why business makes such a huge deal about diversity. It's not because they're good citizens. Some of them really aren't, and some of them are. It's because they want to make more money. And to do that, they need better teams. And to do that, they need diversity of thought. So that's the long and the short of it.
Should we let Yulia finish her presentation?
Yeah, just about to finish. So let's go to this. Yeah, I could finish like slowly,
No,
but
I
okay.
really want to go through this other one, because some people think this is only for classes you have a GUI, and you're one of the ones who showed, no, you can use this sort of thing in any class.
Yeah, well, so for Java classes, yeah, so one approach was to try them different IDEs. So you can do Eclipse, you can use Linux commands, you can use IntelliJ and so on in Visual Studio Code. So it was them together exploring different IDEs, because maybe one IDE give you like UML diagram generated or something, it might be worth it. Another approach was to discover together lead code and go there and do some challenge on lead code. So many of them again at website. So we need to figure out website, where to go, what to do, and then do some coding. No, what was less successful, I had project which one student supposed to start individually and another one continue individually. That was, I think, the least successful project, because those, second guys, we were waiting for first guys and girls and others. And first one were also not in a rush to do it. So we were delaying, missing. So we were like strict deadline. That's it. This day you hand it over to second person. And kind of, it was all disconnected and like floating. So some did their good work, some didn't, some just never got the first part, the second part. Some actually drop everything and just did everything themselves. So that was less successful. No, and to finish, I would say nowadays we can like completely ignore AI. How I saying we can like fire 5 juniors and get 1 with AI. So, some people will just work remotely from home. We again do coding with AI. Robert, so I think we cannot like completely ignore it, like pretend that it's not exist, but it's also a challenge. How do we like overlap these two concepts? Because like job market is not so good, and like AI taking jobs. So I have no idea how to do it yet, but I think we cannot like ignore it like it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So because
So I remember one of your assignments, maybe you have it on the next screen, was where they were supposed to prepare some code to be maintained by a different persona than they were. Is that one of the ones you're about to present?
No, yeah, I'm not sure, but one was like this, do your part, drop it to GitHub, second person pick it up and just, maintain it and improve it and debug it and understand it. But it didn't work well with just kind of group organization, assignment organization. So first part never fully did it on time. Second part was just waiting for first part and didn't think about it too. So nobody really think about it.
I wonder if it'd be possible for that to work if you did it in stages. Like, they have to have the first method coded, by some deadline, and then that gets handed off to the other person while they're working on the second method or something.
No, it was like that, but it was not mentored by me. It was kind of just set up by me, and when they was supposed to coordinate, but they didn't. Also, last thing, I did teach DAF a little bit, say on exams, so you guys know GenderMag. What if you meet this person DAF with socioeconomic mag? And majority said, so that's very good concept, we need to include it, or separately still good concept. No, I have a couple of those who said, no, he's not not fit at all. But majority, were happy seeing DAF on exam.
Cool.
technical already taught a little bit. Good, so then I think I technically shared what I had.
Just to emphasize, for those of you who teach classes without any UI stuff at all, every line of code that a person writes is a UI to the person who has to maintain it next. That's it. So anything that you can do to apply socioeconomic mag to user interface, you can also do that same thing to code or documentation. Anything one person creates that another person is eventually going to have to maintain, which is every industry. Libraries they write, APIs they write, anything that somebody else is supposed to use can be thought about from an Abby and Tim and Pat perspective, if it's GenderMag, and from a Dave and Pete perspective, it's and that's more or less what you were after. Yeah.
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 Okay.
Anybody else do something kind of sort
Turn.
of just here return? There. Okay.
So I used 2 questions in this lab that serve several important purposes in the context of teaching an object-oriented programming course in Java. And I wanted to integrate GenderMag principles. So this is the second course that students take in Java. So here are my 5 reasons why I use these 2 questions. First, I wanted to promote self-reflection, right? I wanted the students to reflect on their own cognitive styles and problem-solving abilities. And also questions that encourage self-awareness and introspective to them. So that was the first reason to promote self-reflection. Then I wanted them to understand diversity, right? So if you take a look at the personas of Abby, Tim, and Pat, right? They all represent diverse cognitive styles. So by identifying with one of these personas, students gained a deeper understanding of the varied ways in which individuals approach programming challenges, right? Then I wanted to also enhance collaboration. So that was a big thing in the class. So working on these questions in groups promoted collaboration and teamwork. So that was my goal for that. Now, collaboration, I thought, is a crucial skill in software development. And this activity provided the students with an opportunity to practice it in a supportive environment, me being the supportive person. And then another reason why I use these 2, I don't know if you could see the second question. Here's my second question. Another reason why I wanted to use these 2 questions is to apply GenderMag principles. So the students were learning GenderMag, some of them for the first time. So I wanted to encourage students to consider gender perspectives in software development. And students learn to recognize the individual approaches regardless of gender. So they learn that people have unique ways of approaching programming tasks, right? And then the last reason why I use these 2 questions was to introduce the relevance to the real world scenario. So my questions were designed to simulate real world scenarios that students can encounter in their future careers. So overall, using my questions, I thought helped students develop a deeper understanding of themselves, their peers in groups, and the principles of inclusive design, all while reinforcing the object-oriented principles in the Java development. So those are the 5 reasons why I chose those 2 questions. Now, I found having students working in groups to answer these questions was a collaborative and engaging activity. So I highly suggest for the newcomers to CESMAG that you work in groups. So let me tell you how I structured the 30-minute group activity, right? So first, how did I form the groups? I divided the class into groups, ideally 3 to 4 students per group. And I encouraged group diversity in group composition in order to foster the different perspectives and insights. So how do you know what diversity is? So by this time, I knew the weak students, the stronger students. I had the shy students work with a little more extroverted students, right, that were more outgoing. So group formation was my first idea. Then there was question analysis, right? So I provided each group with a set of questions related to their cognitive style reflection. Now, these questions are not shown here, but I explained, this is how I taught GenderMag in this question analysis part. I explained the personas of Abby, Tim, and Pat, right? Those are the 3 personas, ensuring that the students understood their characteristics and behaviors. So in Canvas, I gave the students all the GenderMag material. There was a GenderMag handout sheet. There was a facet definition sheet I gave them, the Abby persona, and the 43-minute Margaret YouTube video. I made available to them in Canvas. Now, they didn't watch the YouTube video in the class, but they could have watched it outside of the class. But they had all the other sheets in Canvas. So that was the second thing in the group, the question analysis. Then the third part was discussion and the consensus. So in this stage, I encouraged the group members to discuss each question collaboratively, right? So they share their individual perspectives and experiences. I try to facilitate a conversation where students compare and contrast their approaches to programming tasks and their identification with the personas. And then I really encourage the groups to reach a consensus on their answers to each question based on their collective understanding of all the personas and all of their insights. All right. And then after the discussion and consensus part, then we had a presentation part. So I invited each group to present their answers to the class. And then I encouraged the groups to explain their reasoning behind their choices and how they arrived at their conclusions. So that was the presentation, and I allowed time for questions and answers from the rest of the class after each presentation. Finally, there was a reflection and synthesis stage. So this is where I facilitated a class-wide discussion reflecting the different perspectives shared by each group. And I encouraged the students to consider how their own cognitive styles relate to the personas Abby, Tim, and Pat, as well as their peers. So we talked about it in a class. And then I summarized at the very end the key insights and takeaways from the activities, emphasizing the importance of understanding diverse cognitive styles. So I thought by engaging the students in these group discussions and collaborative problem-solving activities like this, it would create opportunities for them really to learn from each other, gain new perspectives, and basically I wanted them to develop an important teamwork skill and communication skill, right? And this is all while deepening their object-oriented programming context and understanding the different cognitive styles, all right? Now, some of the students' responses, I didn't send it to Rose, but I can just read a couple of responses that I have here. So here are the questions that I gave the students. I'm going to go up. So here's the questions. And I told, the first question was, if you did not immediately generate the final correct output, who do you identify with? Abby, Tim, and Pat. And I thought it was important for me to redefine the personas so the students would recall it because, you know, they haven't had much experience with the personas. So here's a couple of responses I can read to you that the students said. So one person said for number one, I identify with Tim because I know I've learned the way to write this code. I just need to tinker with it and find out what works best. I will put a good 5 hours into fixing the code. Another person identified with Tim. Right, Tim was very popular. I identify mostly with Tim because I like to learn by tinkering rather than by process. For example, I tried to use a nested loop to output the values as they were entered. However, I kept getting the wrong result when determining the winner. So that was the lab. They had to determine the winner of an election at Kane. So this led me to tinker and create a new method to determine the winner, which ended up simplifying my code while also making it accurate. Right. And then let me tell you a third response for number one. This person said, I identify with Pat. And that's exactly what happened with me. I wrote the program and some outputs were wrong. I could fix most of them by myself. However, the percentage I could not. I emailed Dr. Zale. He tried to help me, and I finally got the right output with his help. Also, I searched for the SI team to check my answer, and they gave me the same path to the right answer that Dr. Zale did. Also, the SI leaders introduced me to a group called Code Samurai, which helps students in my situation. So that was some of the responses for number one. Just go through a couple for number two. So number two, my question was the directions describing this lab assignment were directed more toward whom? So this person, and I gave the description of the three personas, and this person said, Abby, why? I will go through my notes and old worksheets from CPS 1231, which is our first Java programming class. If all else fails, YouTube. So that was cute. And then another person said, I feel more like Pat, as I can see the program can be written in different forms. However, the professor wants us to use the topics and methods that we learned during class. I started to write the program not using loops, and the code was just too long. I went back to my notes and tried to simplify what I wrote. Right? So I found that these questions were a great way to encourage students to reflect on their own cognitive styles and how they approach programming tasks. So after going through all of the group projects, at the very end, I went over possible answers to these questions after the students submitted their responses. So I gave them my answer and what they, might have heard from another person, right? Any questions with that? So that was my experience with the second level programming Java class.
One thing I really like about this second question is this the thing I really like about this question is the question. So basically what this demonstrates is, he's asking them to think about the directions described in the lab, which are not unlimited. And so what this points out is you can use socioeconomic mag or gender mag on anything with pixels. Any code, any text, any directions, anything with pixels.
Would you approach the mic a little closer? Before those up, just they want to hear what you're saying.
Hello. I've missed you too. What I was, okay, so I was just complimenting Steve, I guess, on question 2. What I said was what I really liked about his question was the actual question. And so it just points out that you can use socioeconomic mag or gender mag on anything with pixels, any text, any directions, any documentation, any UI, yeah, anything with pixels. So
So just finishing up, so encouraging students to think about their cognitive styles in this way, I think we can help them become more self-aware and basically understand their individual preferences and tendencies when it comes to programming tasks. I think it also emphasizes the importance of considering diverse perspectives. That's why I made each group diverse, you know, such as those represented by the different personas, Abby, Tim, and Pat. And you can apply this in all the software courses. Okay. So I hope that helps.
Questions, comments?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I like the idea of kind of bringing up the fact that your instructor has a persona,
Yes.
and that's gonna be cool.
And I gave them my perspective after everything was complete. And I have what I wrote, what I gave them. It said, who do you identify with? And I said, Tim. I said, I identify with Tim because I encounter issues in my code. I prefer to experiment and try different approaches before seeking help. I like to tinker around with the code and explore alternate features to see if I can find a solution on my own. I feel that trying different methods and exploring options helps me learn and understand the problem better. So they knew where I was coming from. And then it said, who do you think the directions were directed toward? I said Abby, right? I identify with Abby because I prefer having step-by-step instructions when starting a program assignment. Clear instructions help me understand what's expected and how to proceed with the task. I like to follow a structured approach and work through each step methodically. I told the students knowing exactly what to do up front helps me feel more confident in tackling the assignment effectively. So I gave them my perspective also. And the students seem to appreciate it. So my goal in the 2231, our second Java programming class, was to have the students learn who they were, who they identify with, and who their diverse peers were when they were split into groups. And I highly suggest that you break your class into group projects and learn. And I found it to be extremely successful and positive. Right. Any questions?
Wonderful. Okay, so I also was sharing with my students my identity kind of in this sense. And I was saying before I was considering myself team because I'm like do coding and everything like that. But since I became a mom, I'm definitely Abby. And since I became a mom, I'm Abby. Saying that, you know, it's not like be ashamed to be Abby or not like one person is better than other personas or smart. Because, you know, Abby is a kind of so busy in a hectic environment person who's saying, you told me to do ABC, that's it. I do ABC, I do it well, but I never do DAF because I just have so many things to do. And I think it also was important to share it. It's not like one person is better than another person. It's like smart to be team, like, you know, sure, you know, so I think it also was important for me to share.
Thank you.
Okay.